I wanted to be here physically in solidarity with those who have been victimised by the union and in solidarity with this campaign. I think it's absolutely critical now that we stand up to try just to defend our comrades, but in addition to that, to use this defence actually no longer as a defensive campaign, but as the previous speaker has said, one in which we can now mobilise people to start taking the union back. We all get sort of challenged about our credentials within the union. Let me just set out mine. I've been in the union over 30 years. I was a member of NUPE and then obviously transferred over to Unison when we merged. I was shop steward and branch officer for a period of time in social services in Hillingdon, mobilised a number of campaigns on the shop floor, etc. And in the late 70s, went on the NUPE parliamentary panel, and then when we've all got a bit of form, some of you may remember I was on the GLC and I was supported by the union then when we stood for candidacy for the GLC itself. And so there's a long track record of there, being supported by my local branches and then ensured support nationally within the union itself. That was up until a couple of years ago. I was on the parliamentary panel. I didn't receive any, my constituency didn't receive much money. We largely got it through the branches rather than from head office. But a couple of years ago, Prentice, when he was standing for re-election, sought the support of the campaign group of Labour MPs. I chair the Socialist campaign group of MPs, and at the meeting at which this was raised, I maintained the tradition of the campaign group, which is actually, as individuals, we campaign within our own unions, but we don't intervene usually in a union election itself. We allow the individuals of the group to campaign accordingly. So I voted against the endorsement of Prentice as the candidate for the General Secretary, and as an individual, frankly, I supported John Rogers as the candidate. Shortly after that, my constituency Labour Party gets written to say they've had a look at how many sponsored candidates there are in London, and it's full up. And what they're looking to do is to reduce the numbers, to reduce the burden of costs to the union itself. And surprise, surprise, it was my name that was coming off the list. Bizarrely enough, on the same day they took me off, they put on the PPS to the Prime Minister, who was then the MP for Streatham, now standing down. So, I blame John Rogers. I had a glittering career within the union, obviously, but for my associate, it was bizarre, absolutely extraordinary. Now, what then happened is that I then appeared on a few platforms like this in support of Unison members who have been targeted and scapegoated. And, to be frank with you, it's almost becoming a daily event now. Someone gets expelled, or a branch gets closed down, or someone gets relieved of office. But I can't remember which meeting it was. I think it might have been the Central Hall Westminster one. We had a platform then with Eunice Bax and others, at which I spoke. And within 10 days, I get a letter from the union which is insinuating they might be taking legal action against me for slandering the union. You couldn't make this up, really, could you? So naturally, I appeared on even more platforms as a result of that to explain what was going on. What's interesting about this, to be frank, look, I've been around a while in this movement. I've been around a while. I joined in the joined in the 60s when I came out of school, late 60s. Went through all the 70s period, if you like. I'm an old trade union hack. I used to work for the NUN, I was at the TUC. I'm trained in all the dark arts on how to kill a movement, how to destroy a public meeting, how to ensure a march never takes off the ground, all that sort of stuff that you get trained at Congress House. And I went through all that period where you watch those individual unions destroyed by forms of Stalinist bureaucracy that were closing down any forms of activism. But you know, we've not seen it on this scale before. And I'd be frank with you, we never had it within NUPE, even the darkest days. And never, even within Aldo, we never experienced it at this level. And what this is a bureaucracy actually closing in on itself, because it knows it has no relevance to the rank and file experiences of our members. And what this is a beast that's, if you like, lashing out to protect itself and to protect its positions of influence. And I agree, actually, to protect its incomes as well. I bloody resent paying my subs each month to pay the salaries of the officers who are trying to expel us. There's bloody irony here somewhere along the line, isn't it? We're actually subsidising the people who take the pot from us. Right? As I say, I've never, in even the darkest days in this movement, from the 60s onwards, we've never experienced this level of vehement, absolute vehement attack on the rank and file by the union bureaucracy and its leadership. And as I say, I completely agree with Glenn. This is a political struggle. It's not about individuals. It's not about necessarily just power bases. I think what this is that a union which recognises its members feel themselves disillusioned because they've not been represented, that we've sold jobs out, we've had more privatisations under this government within our union than anything we experienced under the Tories, and that's the tragedy of the matter. We've seen wage deals concocted at the national level which has undermined the living standards of our members, and we've seen, if you like, an offering up of our union to the government that has disrespected us on the basis of the job cuts and privatisations that as a result we've experienced. Now I think there's a recognition within the union that whatever happens in the coming months, a large number of our members are not going to put up with it anymore. We have this consensus across all three major political parties that to solve the economic crisis, it's not about tackling the bankers who caused it, it's not about redistribution of wealth or increasing taxation or investing in public services or public ownership. They all agree it's going to be about cuts. And the people whose jobs are going to be cut are our members, because we've got the largest ones and largest numbers of membership in the public sector, and we're the ones that they'll come for. And I think the union recognises that actually people are going to want to fight back. And even though Apprentice occasionally makes the left speech about how he's going to dump on individual MPs who are not voting for union policy and all this sort of thing, he recognises actually our membership are vastly to the left and to the more progressive wing than the union leadership itself, and certainly to the left of this government. And therefore this struggle is about a bureaucracy realising its membership is about to turn on it, and therefore it's trying to take out the leading elements of that membership. That's what this is all about. And I think the only thing we can do is exactly as has been said, we have to fight back. Fight back with every means possible. I know some people have, we've been through this before, I know some people have reservations about using capitalist courts and all the rest of it. We fight wherever we can, and we use whatever implement we possibly can. If it means going into court and it means us raising funds to fund those legal actions, we have to do it. But at the end of the day, I actually think also it's a matter of making sure that we mobilise on the ground with meetings like this across the country to bring our members together, to ensure that they're aware of what's going on, because what's interesting is the lack of coverage of these cases and how they've closed down the ability to communicate about the show trials and all the rest that have gone on within the union, but to communicate to our members to make sure they know what's going on. And then I think once we get that message across, people realise the injustice of it. And people do get angry, so it's mobilising that anger now into every possible struggle we can, whether it's in terms of the ballot box or whenever elections come up, in terms of elections within the union, but also in demonstrations and in meetings as best we can, perhaps expose and campaign against what's gone on. Can I say also, and they're not going to like this either, before I go, let me just give you this promise too. It's on the records. Most probably, can you pan that camera around so we all get expelled together? Let me just say this. As a Member of Parliament, there's responsibilities that you have to use Parliament. And I think it's now time we take this issue on to the full House of Commons as well. We have a responsibility to our members, because if we go on like this, you've seen what's happened in many areas, particularly in London, where actually some of our members have just left the union altogether, completely disillusioned. Some have joined other unions, some have given up altogether. But I think we have a long-term responsibility to our union and also to our class that we fight this. Otherwise, they destroy the very weapon that we have in our hands to protect the standards of living of our members and the quality of life of the community overall, and that is the strength of our union. So I give that commitment. As I say, I'm here tonight as physical embodiment of solidarity with this campaign. I'll do everything I possibly can to expose this witch hunt, defend those people who are being witch hunted, and restore democracy to our union. Solidarity.